country, and therefore this is finally what, of course, the people of South Africa are being treated to. Whether they welcome this, or not, is actually a question of wait. See, something that has been captured on page 31 of the Standard newspaper and all these other papers. So, first things first, we look at the papers. The Standard newspaper, like I said, the Daily Nation and the People Daily are the papers that we have this morning. This is what the Standard newspaper speaks of this morning. Uhuru Raila 9-point BBI court case attack. Pro-Building Bridges Initiative teams unleashed senior lawyers at the Court of Appeal yesterday as they began their quest to overturn a historic judgment by presenting 31 grounds summarized into 9 issues. A story captured on page 6, 7, and 8. It is the biggest story in the country, and therefore we delve deep into understanding what is likely to culminate at the level of the courts, though not deliberate much, because then if it's a matter that's in court, you leave it for the court to deliberate on. We are looking at the 9 issues that they presented, and these were presented by the Attorney General: the publicability of the basic structure doctrine, the constitutional remit of popular initiative, and the question of public participation, the creation of additional constituencies, the question of presidential immunity, the quorum of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the adequacy of legal infrastructure to support signature verification, the single or multiple referendum questions, the issue of voter registration as relates to holding a referendum, and lastly, the question of role of amicus curiae. And this then we'll be looking at. We have individuals that are well versed or have proper understanding of the same, and they'll be telling us what is likely to culminate just by observing what happened day one of this hearing. 10 million people to get COVID-19 jabs by end of year. This, of course, declared by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday, as he was also giving the new directives. Some of them maintained the respective areas, and also just telling us the situation of COVID-19 in the country and what the government has in store in terms of plans of taming the spread of the virus. A story captured on page 3 of the Standard newspaper. And away from it, Zuma gets 15 months in prison. That's a story captured on page 31 in the World section of the Standard newspaper. And Comesa probes top brewers, the business section, that is page 28. And in sports, France pay the price at Euros, page 46, 47, and 48, and so much more. On matters education, it's official to pay rise for teachers. It's official. No, sorry. Pay rise for teachers. No pay rise for teachers. You better get that right. Teachers come out empty-handed after a meeting between unions and employer. Story captured on page 20. They probably expected that it would be different right now or this time around after the exit of Sosion. And from what had been declared, it appeared as though the commission had some, goodwill to make sure that this is looked into, the CBA is looked into, but it appears that such is actually not the case. We'll be following that. We have our education reporters, Andrin Kilemi, we also have Sharon Baranga and a couple of others that will be compiling that story or the developments of the same for us. IMF gives state tough terms for new loan, increasing taxes and masking COVID millionaires, revealing owners of firms that supply goods and services to state entities, and reducing expenditure. A story captured on page 4 and 5 are the key conditions that IMF give, if at all, then as a country we are able to access this loan coming from them. So it's a conversation worth having, even as we continue to get it tough, dealing with matters, graft, lack of accountability, especially for monies that we have borrowed to sustain our budget, some actually to also cater for the debts that we have incurred in the past. TSC deal rejected offer excluded a pay rise to comply with SRC's 2-year salary freeze. All right, that's a story captured on page back. Remember, there was that release of that particular report that SRC had maintained they will not review salaries upward, courtesy of the ramifications that come along with COVID-19, and therefore this could have been informed that conversation of the fact that teachers might not be so lucky this time around, and also that face of Zuma. It's jail for Zuma. Former South African president has been found guilty of contempt by the Constitutional Court and sentenced to 15 months in jail. And of course, it's a developing story. We'll be following up to give you updates on our subsequent bulletins. Now, the High Court judges said that a president does not have mandate to initiate a review through popular vote, and that is on the judgment that was awarded by the High Court, and the legal battle is on matters BBI as it's tried to fight its way back. Top lawyers unleashed their artillery in the Court of Appeal, that is in a bid to overturn the High Court ruling that declared the Building Bridges Initiatives Bill to change the constitutional null and void. Now, the lawyers are representing President Kenyatta, the Attorney General, ODM leader Raila Odinga, and the IEBC, captured on page 4 and 5, and the story that forms the basis of our conversation this morning, and the key things that they have touched on, and the highlights of the proceedings of yesterday, and that in regards to matters vaccination, a plan to vaccinate 26 million adults. I think this is, or highlights, these are generally highlights of what is happening in the world of news, not necessarily the BBI conversation on matters vaccination. What we talked about as President Uhuru Kenyatta gave that particular address as to the situation of COVID-19 in the country. New orders: government has ordered 13 million vaccines from Johnson & Johnson. The first consignment expected in August, and the children, the main target to vaccinate or target to vaccinate about 4 million children if a vaccine for the underage is registered is also what is there. Herd immunity: target to vaccinate 30 million people, seeks to achieve herd immunity. And on matters restrictions, 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew extended to July the 31st in the Lake Region COVID-19 hotspots, while the 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew remains for the rest of the country for another 60 days. That, according to President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday, and to the counties. And we know the figure, Obado seeks to delay trial over Sharon's killing. In a letter to the Director of Public Prosecutions, Migori Governor, Obado says that because of COVID-19 related restrictions, he cannot travel to Nairobi for trial in a case in which he is charged with abating the murder of pregnant university student who was her or his girlfriend, as was declared. A story captured on page 10. We'll be following up also on the same to know what plays out in regards to that. Let's briefly look at what the People Daily has, and front page of the People Daily: lawyers, why BBI must stand, and this legal arguments that are here. The likes of Kennedy Ogeto accused judges of, all right, I get a bigger picture of the same. Let's look at what they say. Kennedy Ogeto accused judges of over-reliance on Wikipedia in ruling on a president's role in popular initiative. Kamau Karori said electoral body was properly constituted to execute the mandate. James Orengo, on the other hand, argued that every article in the Constitution was amendable so long as it's within the law. And George Oraro said that basic structure doctrine was not intended to apply to the Kenyan Constitution, and so much more. And the conversation is at the level of the appellate court. Petitioners argue that the process was constitutional and that the president can spearhead changes to the Supreme Law through a popular initiative, contrary to High Court's ruling. A story captured on page 4, and we'll be looking at that. Zuma sent to jail for contempt and false start as unions and TSC differ on the aspect of CBA. A story captured on page 5 on matters education. Officials accuse employer on concentrating on maternity and paternity issues instead of money, which is crucial for them. Obado wants court to delay murder case over COVID-19. These key stories are more or less the same across all the papers, and we ponder on them as we continue with the broadcast. Now, let's briefly pick what my team has prepared And governors from the 3 counties of Ukambani have urged President Uhuru Kenyatta to gift the region with key development projects when he tours the region next week. Governors Alfred Mutua of Machakos County, Charity Ngilu of Kitui, and Professor Kivutha Kibwana of Makueni said that the Kamba community was highly expectant to have numerous projects completed in order to accelerate economic development in the region. Governor Mutua said that Uhuru's visit to the region should yield positive development projects. President Kenyatta is set to launch various developmental projects in the region next week.
Na tukiwa na pia the South Economic Bloc SECEB, tunataka hii ziara ya rais wetu pia iwe na matunda kwa watu wetu ambao tutaweza kuvuna. Kwa hivyo
we are looking forward to him coming and working and looking at the development projects that we have here in this region and to give us many more projects. We are looking at the budget that was just unveiled some 2 weeks ago by the national government. A budget of 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings is not a small budget. So this region, Machakos, Makueni, Kitui, would like to have a share of that.
Tuna matumaini mengi katika kuja kwake, kwa sababu tunajua kwamba tutakuwa na wakati mzuri, na tena yeye atatamka maneno ya kutupa kutusaidia na tuwe kwamba tunaona kwamba sasa kama mahali pengine pote pale katika nchi yetu tunaendelea pia kupata maendeleo sawa na wenzetu, lakini
And delay in the disbursement of funds to counties remain the greatest challenge to devolved units 8 years on. In a State of Devolution address, county governments and the Devolution Ministry also blamed corruption in counties as one of the challenges, as Joash Ansari reports.
The State of Devolution since its implementation in 2013 has seen tremendous achievements, with the counties trying to meet Kenyans' demands on service delivery. CS Devolution Eugene Wamalwa, addressing the media during the annual State of Devolution in Nairobi, said devolution needs to be answerable to Kenyans in service delivery.
To ensure a democratic and transparent government, we must, once in a while, answer to the people of Kenya, 47 million of them, in our 47 counties, as to what we are doing.
The forum raised concerns on delayed disbursement of funds to the counties, which leads to stalled projects. Denmark ambassador to Kenya, Ole Thonke, called on counties to up their game in the fight against corruption, terming it as the biggest challenge to devolution.
Corruption is, I do believe, the biggest enemy of devolution, and whenever counties are asking for more resources and more funding, this question keeps on coming up. So this must be fought by all levels in the counties.
The Council of Governors lamented that county revenue collection is yet to be done through established revenue collection systems. So far, 18 counties have the systems in place.
A total of 18 counties have established and deployed automated revenue collection systems. These systems include County Pro, county specific, county collection systems like Jumbo Pay.
The governors say that the counties have invested more on agriculture, housing, manufacturing and health, efforts that have contributed to job creation for the youth and improved service delivery.
Further, the counties took measures to support trade development through partnership with the national government to adopt and start implementing integrated export development value chains in agriculture, manufacturing, oil and gas. Council of Governors is proud to report county government commitment to creating job opportunities and increasing our local manufacturing. Some of the achievements include the partnership between the Laikipia County Government and Dedan Kimathi University, which has seen the production of local tuk-tuks.
It is 8 years since devolution was realized in Kenya, and now stakeholders want the county governments to ensure corruption has been dealt with for the counties to achieve more in service delivery to the Kenyans. Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Josh, for that. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has revealed plans by the government to boost the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine in the country amid shortages of the jab. According to the head of state, the government now seeks to vaccinate 10 million people by Christmas this year and 26 million people by the end of next year as the country gears towards full vaccination. And as our reporter David Muthoka reports, President Kenyatta has further issued new COVID-19 protocols to complement the vaccine rollout in the war against COVID-19.
In his 16th address on the COVID-19 situation in the country from State House, Nairobi, President Uhuru Kenyatta on Tuesday evening revealed accelerated plans by the government in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the head of state, triumph over the virus now hinges on the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine, insisting that by Christmas this year, the government seeks to inoculate 10 million people and 26 million people by the end of next year.
When we reported the first case of COVID-19 more than 15 months ago, the idea of a vaccine was nowhere in our minds. 1 year later, in March 2021, we were able to roll out a national vaccine deployment plan.
This comes at a time when the country is facing shortages of COVID-19 doses. However, the head of state has stated that with the acquisition of a shipment of 13 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in August and the imminent completion of a human vaccine center, the turbulence witnessed since vaccine rollout took off in March this year could soon be a thing of the past.
Using these vaccines and others in the pipeline, this is how we will vaccinate over 10 million Kenyans by Christmas of 2021 and 26 million Kenyans by the end of 2022.
As at Monday, 1.2 million Kenyans had been vaccinated, among them 1,003,204 people who have only received their initial dose and 289,800 who have so far received their second dose. This means in a span of 3 months, less than 1% of the Kenyan population has been vaccinated, with the government now staring at an uphill task of vaccinating more than 9 million people within 5 months to reach its 10 million target by December.
And we will have built a capacity to vaccinate 150,000 people every day as of August of 2021.
Meanwhile, President Kenyatta has issued new COVID-19 protocols that will see curfew, among other measures, last until September earliest. The measures include a 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. dusk to dawn curfew in 13 western counties, the usual 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew in the rest of the counties, an extended ban on political gatherings of that capacity during in-person worship services, mandatory COVID-19 free certificates to those flying into the country, as well as 100 persons limit in funerals, weddings and other events.
As a country, we have adapted to the new normal with grace and resilience, and for this I thank Kenyans.
David Muthoka, TV 47, Nairobi.
To matters education, teachers unions NART and KUPPET have rejected a proposal from the Teachers Service Commission on the 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement, saying they won't sign the document because it lacks an important component, a salary increment for teachers now. TSC, on the other hand, say the proposal they brought to the table was as a result of advice from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Sharon Baranga on that remuneration standoff.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
It is a meeting that brought together leaders from the Kenya National Union of Teachers NAT and Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers KUPPET. On this day, they were speaking one language. They have rejected a proposal from the Teachers Service Commission on the 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement because it did not touch on the salary increment for teachers.
What did we come out with? Nothing. 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 Nothing in terms of remuneration. And we are told to take it to our members. I want to say here and now, I cannot be crucified by members 2 days in office. Yesterday was Monday. Today is Tuesday.
That KUPPET is reluctant to entertain a CBA with no monetary benefits.
The union leaders say they were not going to sign the document from their employer until their issues are heard and added in the CBA.
COVID-19 as a shield. Who doesn't know that COVID-19 is there? Shall COVID-19 stop you from eating? Shall COVID-19 stop you from going to school and teach? Let us not pretend. So the issue of calling on strike, that one is level to everybody.
The Commission has been negotiating in bad faith. It is knowingly waiting until the dying hours of the current CBA to bring nothing to the table.
On the other hand, TSC defended itself, saying the proposals they presented to the teachers were guided by advice from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission.
On June 17, 2021, the SRC gave an advisory that there would be no review on the basic salary structures, allowances, benefits paid in the public sector in the financial year 2021 to 2022 up to 2022 to 2023 financial years. In line with the SRC directive and keen to ensure that our teachers enjoy other benefits of a CBA, the TSC immediately commenced the 2021-2025 CBA negotiations with all relevant unions in the teaching service, well aware that such talks could maintain the components maintain the components of basic salary, annual increments, allowances and benefits currently obtaining in the teaching service.
The 2017-2021 CBA that is currently being used is set to expire at the end of this month, which is tomorrow. The meeting between the teachers' employer and the unions comes a few days after Wilson Sossion stepped down as Secretary General of NAT and Colin Soyu was elected as the leader of the one-time giant teachers' union in the country. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
The 7-judge bench of the Court of Appeal constituted to hear the appeal against the High Court ruling that nullified the BBI constitutional amendment process began the 4-day hearing. Now, the Attorney General and the BBI Secretariat presented their submissions in the open court at Supreme Court Gardens. The two appellants arguing their case is their attempts to salvage the BBI bill. And as Musa Salah reports, the two appellants seemed to agree on the BBI bill's interference with the basic structure of the Constitution, which the High Court said cannot be changed.
Yes, President, I'm just curious.
Armed with the piles of files and papers, the four appellants in the appeal against the 13 May High Court ruling that declared the BBI constitutional amendment process unconstitutional flocked into the open court at the Supreme Court Gardens.
It does not exist.
First on the stand before the BBI Secretariat argued their case was the Attorney General's team that raised 31 grounds of appeal, including the structure of the Constitution, in which the 5-judge bench of the High Court based their judgments on, claiming that the BBI would change the structure of the Constitution.
It is an item of jurisprudence that some, what I would call new age scholars, are trying to urge on the world to say that there should be some limitation to be decided by the judiciary on when people or what people can amend in a constitution. These concepts are not being employed elsewhere. In fact, our own neighbors have rejected it. Uganda has rejected it. Tanzania has rejected it. Every African Supreme Court has rejected it. For some reason, Kenya has decided it is okay.
The trial court, because they were so anxious about applicability of the basic structure doctrine, they had to create it. They had to invent it, because nowhere does it exist in the Constitution.
The High Court decision to throw the BBI bill out of the window on grounds that the BBI bill was initiated by the president and thus not public-driven seemed to have irked the senior counsels. According to the two appellants, the 5 judges denied President Kenyatta his individual political right as a Kenyan to initiate a public initiative.
And the point that I was making is that, in fact, the people have an option of going to parliament through Article 119. So both the president and the people can access parliament in that sense.
Now, Mr. Karuri, under Article 257(2),
yes,
a popular initiative for amendment,
yes,
may be in the form of a general suggestion or by way of formulated as a bill. Do you see a situation where those who wield state power can make a general suggestion? To whom are they making that general suggestion?
My Lord, I do not want to hypothesize, but I can, even when you are talking about the general citizen, the Wanjiko, when they come up with a general suggestion, to whom would they be making that general suggestion?
To the parliament, to the county assemblies, etc., to government, to the state. Yes.
And the president can make a general suggestion or can make a suggestion
to his government,
to the people, to consider an amendment to the constitution. Right. They can make a general suggestion.
The Elections Act gives the president actually the power to come out with an issue to be taken to the people and a referendum held.
The lawyers argue that the 5 judges erred in law by recommending that separate questions should have been placed for separate issues in the BBI bill if the bill was passed and a referendum held.
And have replied in this court as such respondents.
Lawyer Charles Kanjama, who petitioned that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC signature verification exercise was flawed, was thrown out of the appeal, the court having declined his plea to participate in the case.
The quorum to pass constitutional muster will just be the same number.
No, my Lord, there's actually a maximum number which is 9.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
For purposes of conduct of the business, if they're 9, that's fine. But my Lord, the point that I'm making is simple. The Constitution says each commission shall consist of at least 3, but not more than 9 members.
So if you have 9 members in a commission,
yes,
you're saying so long as there are 3, that is a quorum.
My Lord, my position is that as long as a commission has a minimum of 3, it is entitled to conduct the business of the commission.
Okay.
The hearing is expected to continue on Wednesday as the IEBC and President Kenyatta's legal team prepare to submit their submissions. Musa Salah, TV 47.
Well, thank you, Musa, for that. Forms the basis of our conversation, though we do not get deep into it. But I'm glad that we have a legal mind on board also, and therefore would be able to tell us something small in regards to the same, especially the controversial aspect that at some point in time we had figures who had questioned the procedure of setting up the BBI bill. But again, the very same individuals that are representing this or are representing the outlets, and therefore it's really, really important then we get to a point where we understand just what plays out legally when such a scenario is there, and why would the athletes again be confident enough that this person is a person who's going to deliver a win for them. Whether the Court of Appeal is going to, uphold the decision of the High Court or quash the decision of the High Court is certainly a question of wait and see. In a 4 days process, goes all the way to Friday. Unless something else happens, we're likely to know then what plays out after that proper hearing or a cool hearing of 4 days. And we get to have the guest of the day this morning. We already have Ndegwa Wahome, Chair County Assemblies Forum. He's right next to me. And somewhere, I say in the middle because we're expecting another guest, is Honorable James Gakuya, Member of Parliament in Embakasi North. We always have him every Wednesday, and I'm glad that we have him again. Gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you, Rida.
It's always good to have you in Nairobi.
Thank you.
Yes, karibu sana. So I don't even know whether we want to delve into that story first. I guess we put it aside for a moment. And I'm sorry I was mean, or I am mean. I did not extend this. So I think it's now good that we can look at the papers, even though I don't like it when I give Mhesh that paper or the newspapers, because mostly you will find his mind is there. But the irony is that every question you ask, even if he's focusing on the papers, he will answer accordingly. And every argument that arises, he counters accordingly. So, well, let's give him that moment to go through the papers and also help us ponder on the same. Interestingly, this morning, or that's one of those days that you find all the stories on the papers are more or less the same. Even if you look, it is the BBI, it is Zuma, it is TSC, it is Obado, and it is President Uhuru Kenyatta's address. Let's start with that one, the president. And so we received this message that the president is going to address the nation, and everyone is eagerly waiting to hear what it is that he has to say, and brings us the usual information on how best we're able to tame COVID-19, but with some positivity that at least a majority of Kenyans will be able to get the vaccine. What do you make of yesterday's address, Honorable Wahome?
Thank you very much, Linda, and I would want to greet the people of Nyandarua and my constituency, which is all the MCAs and the speakers of this country. Yeah. And also thank you for having me again today. Has always been my pleasure. What I would want to say is that I expected another shaking statement
that was
from
not
the president. Actually, I left everything else. And when the statement came, although it did not sound so heavy, but again, I thought that there were reasons why the president came out.
Yeah.
The president must be knowing something we don't know.
Okay.
With the kind of limitations that was made on gatherings, on assemblies, and the extension of the curfew, and the pronouncements about the vaccinations that had been received, and how they would be applied, then you can tell that we are not yet out of the woods.
Yeah.
And therefore, also for us is to ask Kenyans to continue being on the high alert, because this disease is with us, and being airborne, it is only when you keep your distance and you follow all the protocols that will enable us to move on as a country and be able to mitigate the harshness of this particular pandemic.
All right. Yeah. Well, indeed, and I'd want to say that aspect of the vaccine, and we can only hope that a majority of Kenyans will be able to access the same. Remember, there were those ones who got the AstraZeneca jab 1, they've not been lucky enough to get jab 2. They still are worried whether they're going to get it at all. So, Mheshimiwa, coming to you, what do you make of President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday?
Thank you, Rida. Also allow me to salute the viewers wherever they are watching us from. Coming to the president's speech yesterday, personally, I was also a shocked person when I analyzed what the head of state was really intending to address the nation about. And I thought that, in fact, yesterday was a big statement, only to realize that, in fact, is the normal data he's talking about, which we obviously has been left that particular job to the Ministry of Health. And when he was away, actually, the Minister for Health articulated very well and took that particular. We realized that when the counties were closed in Western, the closure was declared by the CS Health. And therefore, I think that these are simple job that the head of state should delegate to those junior people. Because when you pronounce yourself as a head of state that you want to address the nation, really, the nation is eager to listen. And therefore, each and everyone will leave all his jobs to listen to the head of state, as we expect the head of state, his statement comes with a bang. Anyway, let me say about matters to do with the news that he came out with. One is that just an assurance to Kenyans that probably the grown-up, the mature people, the grown-up will be able to have vaccinated by the end of 2022. To me, what I would say, this is not a miracle route, is a practical route. If the government is serious enough to do that, it is doable. What I would, personally I would not want to hear is just gimmicks. I would just want to hear, to see things happening, not to hear. We have had a lot, and we have expected a lot. We are now speeding to a second year in this particular fight of this pandemic. And to this particular point in time, it is not the time that we could be hearing issues like Kakamega, that people are being advised to move in with their oxygen incubators. This is totally too wrong. To have to a government that actually has all this particular time for preparedness. Then having listening from Western Kenya that people are advised to move in with their oxygen, then I ask myself, this is maybe a miserable person who actually is seeking what we call even public services in a hospital, because he cannot manage in private services. Then you are telling this person to walk in with oxygen. First and foremost, is this fellow required to be assisted to survive, or to be given another baggages, which are unmanageable? So I would like to tell the government that we are not happy in the manner the pandemic is being treated or is being taken. And the government, the national government, cannot hesitate to close its eyes with what's happened down there. The government is a pillar which holds all the counties, and therefore the national government should make sure that all the counties are adhering to the measures required by the Ministry of Health, and all the preparedness that actually have been, which has been planned there before. We should want to hear them well and clearly implemented. Finally, let me finish with saying, assurance of Johnson, I would say, that's a good thinking, because out of that, moving us out of box. We cannot keep on begging this particular vaccine from our neighbors here, who actually have near expiring dates. And it is better that we change our route in a way that actually we can be able to get the enough quantity we want to consume. And number two, that we cannot be begging orders from just one single person, where even implementation becomes so hard that one has to be injected twice. If we can go to a route where one will just get one vaccine, and that's the end of it, that could be a very clear and simple route. Because how it is unbecoming when you are not assuring somebody who was vaccinated last month that you will still be able to get that vaccine today. So therefore, I would say that's a good plus, and the government is government to plan for the people, and therefore those are good planning as we forge forward.
All right, and I'm glad that we have Daniel Orogu, governance expert and analyst, also this morning. Dan, as we welcome you, if you ask the common mwananchi who government is, they'll tell you members of parliament. I don't know whether I should say are or a member of parliament is government, and therefore when you hear a member of parliament equally pointing a finger at the government, then you ask, especially a member of parliament.
But it is very true that the constitution has made it very clear.
Yeah.
And it has given every sector its duty. Executives have its mandate, the judiciary has its mandate, and the legislature has their mandate. That's true. And therefore, we ask is to check balances. And that's why we have a duty to oversight. Okay. Therefore, we must be poking the government where it's going wrong. So who else will do that? And that's the duty we are given by the Constitution.
Dan, as you ponder on President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday, who else would do that?
Well, I think, first of all, good morning, and my apologies for slight hiccups. It is the expectations of each and every citizen that the three arms of government work in tandem, and that they are independent but also dependent on one another. And I agree with what Jimmy is talking about, that the legislative part of the government or hold the other arms of government into check. But again, the two ought to consult that deliver services to the country. Now, going to the president address, I think it's important as a country. There is nothing wrong with the head of state addressing the country and on matters that are critical, especially right now to the nation. Linda, this is coming on a backdrop where there has been a total lockdown in the neighboring countries. Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania giving its first, update, I think, just the other day. So I think the trends that are happening in the East African countries, but with the president also to be relevant in terms of just providing the updates and reassuring, the counterparts of the East African country that Kenya, as a leading regional, state, and members of the League of Nations is also, trying to deal with the coronavirus amid, other issues. And secondly, I'm also perturbed by the statement that, some counties people have to walk with oxygen. I think, Linda, going back to, what we've been talking about, you remember sometimes there was a threshold that was given to counties in terms of their bed capacity. What they were really given to standardize in terms of dealing with coronavirus. Recently, we've seen the Council of Governors, especially the health committee of that council, coming up and making a statement that the counties also needs to be given power to import, the vaccines. That to itself shows you the disconnect that we are having between the national government and the county government when it comes to, dealing with the pandemic. And I think it bequeaths the county governments and the national government to have a negotiation and a very critical dialogue, especially as people are foreseeing, I don't know whether there's a fourth surge or a fourth, segment of the coronavirus that we are seeing, but it's quite important that the country, we are not off the hook, and we shouldn't lower our guard. I think that is what the president is coming out to assure. That as so much as so many things are happening, besides other issues, he's still up in arms. He's still in leading, in terms of trying to urge the country, and all the leaders, to take precautions. But again, we cannot, be playing double standards, because the reason as to why Nyanza and the counties that are within Western is because we had a super spreader. And when we had rallies at Makadara Day, Madaraka celebration, and we are seeing a number of people gathered and addressing the rallies, definitely we are going to see the surge. We are going to see the spikes. And that is very important, that we could have been prepared of the consequences of the choices that we made, that we are holding, which was not bad, a public, holiday. But again, after the public holiday, people are gathering to deliver and address the rallies with people gathering and not taking precautions amid pandemic. So one of the things that I detest, I hope the pronouncements are not double standards, because one of the things is also said that will be no public gathering. And this should not be misread as, dealing with other factions of political rallies, other factions of political parties. I think the head of state, who is the head of the executive, is very strong in his statements that, we should be avoiding public rallies, because that is a super spreader and is aiding the spike of coronavirus.
So you hope it cuts across.
I hope it cuts
From
across.
what we've seen in Kiamba.
Because there's rallies in Kiamba, there's just an election that is coming. And also, the UDA is addressing rallies, the party. So I think it's just important that he's taking, that statement is quite objective in its sense.
All right.
Maybe I can just add a small light there. And just indicate that in terms of double speaking, we have seen the head of state doing this, and it has been his tradition. Because this is not the first time he has done that. He's the one who made the pronouncement of no public gathering, and was the first one to break that particular the direction. When you give the rest of the people as the reading compatriots, and you show them now the time has come now to gather, how do you expect from the others? They shall follow your route.
Why should they? And when we're talking about the others, we're talking about other leaders.
I am telling you that, in fact, once you are the head, we rely with your foot, with your walks and talks.
Okay.
Then when you distance yourself from your walk and talk, then we shall follow your next talk and walk. Then when the president makes such a kind of a gathering in Kisumu, and not only Kisumu has been working with the Prime Minister opening projects in the city of Nairobi and elsewhere, what do you expect from the other politicians? You cannot rock the other politician to meet the people if you are giving yourself a leeway to the same. Then if it is a directive, you must honor the same. Otherwise, we must be under the roof of that directive.
As we close on this, Honorable Wahome, an independent mind would, I think it is not a justification that now that President Uhuru Kenyatta has broken the rules, then we all decide that we're going to break the rules. I do not see that as a justification, but then I stand corrected. But I agree with what Mheshimiwa says and what Dan says as well. It is important that if you preach water, you take water.
Okay, what I would want to say is that, and I've said this previously, that Kenya, we have very, very good blueprints, and we make very important and fundamental pronouncements. Unfortunately, when it comes to implementation, it becomes a problem. And the issue is that the application of the law selectively. And I think with this, it is a very sad for this country. And because like myself, I talk from a point of knowledge, because I am a victim. Where you find like a place like in Nyandarua, where the governor has no respect for the court orders. He has no respect for the rule of law. He and his team are the owners of corruption and war in Nyandarua, but they are worshipped and idolized, and no actions can be taken against them.
Why would you say no actions can be taken about them? You are the speaker, and you have the members of county assemblies down there, or the members of county assembly of Nyandarua, to be precise. With that knowledge, why wouldn't they initiate a process that would counter what it is?
It is not as easy as that, leader.
Yeah.
When we have police protecting the person who is breaking the law,
okay.
When we have police introducing goons and thugs into an assembly with machetes and whole hurdles to wait for the speaker and the others who are going to the assembly to be harmed at the watch of a government, because there is a governor who thinks that he is above the law and that he can exercise impunity. It is a very sad moment, and therefore
aren't you proving to the people of Nyandarua that indeed he is above the law if you say it's not easy to initiate a process that would counter what it is that he's doing? Is a polite way of telling the people of Nyandarua, Dan, I stand corrected, that indeed this person is above the law. This person is capable of,
And actually that is what is happening. Linda, I'm telling you, like the clerk who is in the assembly of Nyandarua is not even an employee of the county assembly of Nyandarua. She has been introduced there by the governor and introduced to the central bank, and she is made to even requisition monies for the county when she's not an employee.
Just
the
board
of a county assembly of Nyandarua, the board of the county assembly of Nyandarua, that is legitimately and protected by a court order, is not making resolutions in that county government. It is another parallel organ established by the governor that is purporting to carry out the business of the assembly. I am the speaker of Nyandarua County Assembly. I cannot even get into the chambers of Nyandarua County Assembly. My vehicle is being driven by another person under the protection of police. This is the levels we have gone. And deputy speaker. My deputy speaker. And who has even been told by the court not even to act as a speaker, not even trying to be the speaker, even to act. There is a clear court order, but he is being driven under the protection of police. So that's what I'm telling you. When we talk about laws, when we talk about the principles of good governance, and when thuggery is being worshipped and being appraised, it is a very, very sad situation. And that's why I'm unable to comment, because I'm a victim where constitutional order and the rule of law have been thrown through the window, and there are no remedies that seems to happen.
That is quite sad for the events that are happening in Nyandarua, and I think we've been watching. The nation has been really perturbed by the proceedings. Linda, one of the things that we really need to hammer home is that even as we have the national government there is clear separation of powers, I think it's also important to cascade that through the counties. And the functioning of the county government, and as envisioned in the County Government Act, is quite clear that the executive part of the county assembly should be distinct from the legislative part of county assembly. In a sense, I'm saying that the autonomy of the county assemblies headed by the speaker, that is democratically elected by the county, should not be meddled by, the head of county assembly, that is the governor. Yeah. And I think this is quite important because this is something that should be outlined in the national discourse. The events in Nyandarua has been happening everywhere again. You've seen counties where there's literally chaos, because the governor and the speaker cannot read from the same script. And therefore, one person's life is in danger. And I think it's important for us as a nation that even as we continue to implement the Constitution of Kenya, the spirit and the letter of this Constitution, the separation of powers within the county assemblies and within the county government, it is something that needs to come out very clearly. Because if we ignore that, then we are going to descend into anarchy. It happened in Machakos. It has been happening in Embu. It has been happening in Kisumu. Migori is another chaotic county. So I think it's important that even as the county government, the Council of Governors protects one another. The county executives. It is also important the county legislature, through the county assemblies forum, must also come up and distinguish and tell the country that the role of legislation, the law of representation within the county assembly, there is a threat because the county executives are meddling into the functioning of the county, of the county assembly. It's important as a country because the case in Nyandarua is a case that really the country should be focusing into and calling the governor into order in the county assembly, because that is a threat to the functioning of devolution generally. Right. So the speaker, we are really sorry about that, but it's equally important that there are other arms that can provide for checks and balances if the county government fails. We have the Senate. The Senate is very important that it calls these counties to order. It's important for the Senate to provide a hearing in what is happening in this country, including Nyandarua County.
All right, but Rida, what I can say, our constitutional order is very clear. Let me tell you, what is happening in our counties is very simple. There is what we call an element of compromise. And that compromise is compromising what the Constitution stipulates. Because the Constitution has separated powers. And if we are good fighting because there is no separation of powers, then that could be another case. But separation means the speaker has his law and he has his team. The governor has his law and has his team. And let me tell you, if that one is well distinguished, then the two cannot fight at any single day. Because he has his budget, the governor has his, and the rest works. And that is the way to go. But today we have a big problem, including in the Senate. Senate is a house that we expect to be very partial. But let me tell you, decision has been made out of the decision of impeachment of governors, where we have seen outright what we call double edge, that actually one can be crucified, and at the middle of the night, decision is made, and before the closure of that, then the what we call it, government printer is already gazetted that particular. So that tells you there was a cahoot right from the beginning of the process to the end, and people have been stationed there so that the process can end. The speaker can make the hammer on the last hammer, and the government printer can print so that Waitito can go home. We have seen this happening, and let me tell you, it's not fair. We need to have a neutral and fair judgment. And that's why that Senate is not a house to be compromised. Okay. The same is happening in the counties. The counties have been compromised. Members of the county have been compromised by governors. And let me tell you, that's why the speaker can have all these difficulties. Because if the members of the county government of Nyandarua want their speaker back, they will fight for it. And the speaker will be on his chair.
Truth be told.
I'm telling you.
Truth be told. Yes. And speaking of which, then we are worried about, the very same note, we are worried about devolution. I am keen to ask whether we are breeding warlords in the governance that we have today. And I'll couple that with the story of Obado, who wants now court to delay murder case over COVID-19. Of course, murder case on Sharon. And so we ask ourselves, when we speak of a scenario where we hope that devolution would work, when we see the governors themselves, yesterday, they were complaining about the aspect of the delay of funding, at the level of the counties. That could be one big problem that alters the, progress of devolution. But then again, the individuals that we elect as governors, the individuals that we elect as members of county assemblies, as Mheshimiwa would rightfully put it, if they really wanted you back, they would have fought their way to make sure that that happens.
So, Leader, I truly agree with you. And these instabilities that you are finding in county governments, all of them are geared towards ensuring that governors are not oversighted and they are not accountable. And the case for Nyandarua is a very clear case where the governor does not want to be accountable, does not want to be transparent. And when I was talking, when I brought the issue of Nyandarua, when you asked me about the presidential statement and the efficacy of the implementation, is that and that is where the rain started beating us in Nyandarua, the COVID monies, the COVID millions is the biggest problem. And that was my main problem with the governor. When I'm asking 400 million, clearly there is nothing to show for it in Nyandarua.
Okay.
There has not been an ICU after 1 year. We had provided money for a gas plant. It is not there. Beds were being collected from other dispensaries and rice were being peddled that these beds had been bought from Nairobi. So we cannot talk about whatever the president says. It is not being implemented at the grassroots. And therefore, it is what is causing a lot of war. Actually, I say, if corruption is wiped out in Nyandarua, if those who are corrupt and they are known, we have evidence or we have given it to the necessary offices, if they are dealt with, these wars in Nyandarua will come to an end. Because most of those people would be in jail. Leader, we have given documentation of even where money have gone into bank accounts of individuals, where things have been said they have come to JM hospital, they are not there, you can see it, but nothing is happening. We have reported to the controller of budget that the person doing requisitions for the monies of the assembly is not even an employee of the assembly, is in the criminal enterprise ran by the governor. But the control of budget is releasing this money. We have written to Central Bank and if miss, you cannot release money to these people. They are not the crack, they are not the board. This money is being released. Now you ask yourself, what kind of a country are we living in? Devolution is a dream that whose time has come. Devolution is the magic that would ignite and trigger development in this country. But with the kind of impunity where Nyandarua is the imposter boy led by its governor, then devolution is not going anywhere in this country.
Wow, it is quite a sad statement to hear. I mean,
it's quite shocking. But I agree with Jimmy and the speaker. There is this spirit in the letter of Constitution. Linda, we cannot overemphasize. I mean, there is what we are given as a country as a template for every action that we do. And I agree that the county government is magic, that if we just implement, even 30% of what is required in the County Government Act, then we are going to have a very, serious development that are cascaded down to the counties. And, the cases that the Honorable Speaker is actually mentioning here, of course, we cannot really expedite them in the court of public opinion. But like you've said, that these are cases, the files that are forwarded, and I think the prosecutory bodies are rolling up in arms investigating into this. The reason as to why I'm really worried about the statements the Speaker made, that now in the capacity as the county assembly, as the Speaker of the county assembly, he is incapacitated, you know, to carry out his roles and functions and to lead his colleagues in representing, in providing oversight, and, you know, in trying to hold the county executive accountable. And like you've mentioned, that is replicated in other counties. You know, we might be talking about other counties, maybe 20 counties that are not really, their cases are not just coming into surface, but they are happening. Yeah. So you really wonder at painstakingly who is at the loss when there is chaos. And the way I like the way you put it, that we are raising warlordship in the county assemblies at the expenses of representation. Then the county, you know, the citizens are the ones that are going to suffer, because then the services are not going to be provided. And in the midst of COVID pandemic, if people are not going to receive emergency services, if vaccines are not going to be provided properly, you know, so then who are we staring into? We are staring at a crisis that is involving not only, you know, the bigwigs in these counties, not only the executive, but then we've been involving chaotic issues that are affecting the voters themselves, and that they're wondering the choices that are made. And you see, this is where I'm coming into, and I hope that we'll have some time, maybe if not today. I keep on questioning what is the level of people that we are electing. The problem that we are having is degree a cure to have people who are able, you know, to stand in their capacity and follow up with their representative. So you see, if the cases that we are seeing, that people are working in the county assemblies, the sanctification of the county assembly, somebody can walk with a machete, somebody can walk with guns and, you know, and lethal weapons. Then we really question, really, did we, you know, elect people who know what they are doing within the county assemblies? What is the sanctity of the institutions that we are having in the counties?
That's true. Are you for the idea that we should have degrees, leaders who hold degrees based?
I think the discussion is balanced, because then degree and education, you know, is very important, is a requirement that we should have. But I don't think it should be elevated to the level where we try to cascade other important roles.
Okay.
I emphasize leadership and integrity as a very critical component when it comes to election and selection of leadership.
Okay.
Actually, Rita, I've come here.
Okay.
And
you're in Nairobi for that.
I have said previously that for me, degree is secondary. If we had people of integrity and free of corruption in Nyandarua and in other devolution entities, this country would be a better place to live.
As learned as you are, Mheshimiwa, wouldn't you want that to be appreciated? Wouldn't you want that to be given, you know, an upper hand when we're having such discussions?
The degree?
Yes.
No, what I'm saying is that the fundamental is integrity.
Okay.
What this country, nobody is crying about the degrees in this country. People are crying about corruption.
You know, it's sometimes they say, at least with integrity. A degree, it is outright. We get to know that this person has a degree or not. We hope that it is genuine. But the aspect of integrity has been a problem. In most cases, they will appear as though they have, you know, the highest level of integrity, only to surprise us when they get there. And you see them getting a clean bill of health. You know, the people who've been appointed, they get a clean bill of health at the level of parliament, at the vetting processes. We see them being cleared by IEBC. So it's almost hard to probably detect whether one has integrity or not.
Actually, it is about the agencies that clear the people who go to the ballot. That is where we have the main weak link to having a leadership of integrity and free of corruption. Because I've seen people who have criminal records and they are known. And they are being cleared by the IBC, they are being cleared by the EACC. You have seen people who are even have escaped from jail. And they go to the IBC and they go to the EACC and they are being cleared. It depends on where you are studying politically to be cleared. So therefore, if in this country we don't have a clear paradigm shift and we agree to go by the code letters of the Constitution and the spirit of the Constitution, then degrees or nothing will not be helpful. What we need is to go back to the drawing board and ensure that those people who get to the ballot are clean people, people of integrity, free of corruption. Otherwise, there is no empirical study that has ever been carried out to show that those with degrees do better than those without degrees in terms of service to the people.
Close to what happens in the country, Mheshimiwa, and now this in South Africa, we see that South Africa court jails ex-president Jacob Zuma for contempt because he was summoned but he did not appear. I mean, the numerous cases of contempt of court that we've gotten in the country, honestly, this is a good move. Would we reduce these cases in the country in the event that we take this direction? And Zuma, with the numerous cases that bedevil him, 15 months?
Leader, one thing let me tell you. What matters is people to be lenient. People must be adhering to the Constitution. If we leave that to others, and then we exclude some from that, then automatically it becomes a double standard. And once it appears a double standard, then we cannot walk the same direction. In this particular case of Zuma, it is well known that actually he had a case of corruption, and him being a head of state, that does not qualify him. That does not justify him that he can escape to what we call a court hearing. And therefore, the contempt automatically falls to his hammer. And I'm grateful that such a judiciary of South Africa can give such a president such a ticket. That's very good. To me, in Africa, we are not adopting this route. Actually, this route is adopted elsewhere, outside. But in Africa, we are very slow in terms of implementing such kind of drastic measures. I am telling you for sure, our problem in this country is a problem because we are not adhering to the Constitution, and the leaders assumes that the Constitution is for those who are read. But let me tell you, if you are a teacher, you must lead the learners with an example. Discipline must start from you. You cannot come into the school with a tattered clothes, with a tattered shoe, and you want the students that you are taking to nurturing to copy you in the manner that you are. That can't work. And therefore, the leaders must be the best examples of implementing our Constitution. When the head of state, and that's what I have addressed you there before, comes, tells us, yes, here there's a process of appointing judges, and judges are appointed, 41 number of them, and then that file is kept on a shelf for 1 year. Then it tells you somebody is feeding the Constitution. Because the spirit of the Constitution is being kept aside. The Constitution is there to lead us. And therefore, when somebody decides he's the implementer and he's not ready to implement, then are we moving in the right direction? So we must lead to implement the Constitution by good examples. And that's only where our morals can stand within that route. And therefore, it is the leadership which fails. It's not the readers. The people who we lead actually are good listeners and they force. But when we break the law, who are they to follow the law?
All right.
So let me just comment a little bit on this.
And I want to ask a question on that. Maybe as you comment, weigh in on the same also. Historic ruling, they would declare it. But Zuma, is separately facing about 16 charges of fraud, graft, racketeering, in relation to what played out in 1999, purchase of fighter jets, patrol boats, and all this. Cases that have been there for the longest of time. Do we sometimes focus on non-issues that now he has to go to jail for contempt of court? Contempt of court that probably expected him to appear so that he would deliberate on this. I mean, it appears as though they're taking forever to get answers to this, but they rush to, jail him on something that would really not be of interest to the people anyway.
I think looking at this case, and when you've been following this case, I think it's important that one, it's a case that really began when Jacob Zuma was still the president. And I am tempted to think that he might have been interfering with the cases and trying to meddle into the witnesses and other things that might bring forth to find him guilty or not. So I think that could be attributed to a factor that why the case has taken longer than expected. And secondly, I'm also tempted to toy with the idea that the cases that are labeled against the former president are of serious magnitude, because looking at when somebody is charged with contempt of court and being asked to demonstrate the magnanimity of that contempt of court, it mainly shows towards a direction where one shows lethargy towards the constitutional process, towards the constitutional cause. So I think him being found guilty in a sense that, one, he violates the constitution of the Republic of South Africa, but has gone ahead to demonstrate that he was not willing to give the Constitutional Court a time to expedite that case. But also coming to what we are talking about, Linda, sometimes the devil that we have is that we really negate the integrity bit of it in trying to give personality, glorify personality. And I agree with you on how you are lacing this into the contemporary issues that we are facing as Kenyans. I would like to tell you that, the processes of settling for a presidential candidate in ANC, not a Mani National Congress, of course, the African National Conference of South Africa. Yeah. Their issues is more of the party, because historically ANC, once you become the president of ANC, you automatically assumes, the position of the president of South Africa. And therefore that one, it's a danger in itself. Okay. Because the party processes might disabuse the integrity chapter, might contempt, the leadership and integrity. And this is what we faced in 2017. Right. All political parties, and the chaos that we have in Nairobi with the former governor is a clear demonstration of what we are facing. Even it's similar. You remember the case where he even said that his DCI clearance, good conduct was issued in setup. That was said clearly. And then the devil later came to revisit that we had this case of my Sonko, who was cleared, of graft cases, but the case later caught up with this. So we cannot really, underemphasize the importance of leadership and integrity. And that's why I keep on saying the mess that we are having in the leadership architecture of this country, in the governance architecture of this country, the political parties are to blame for it. Because if we are having political parties that would follow rules and regulations that are provided even with the IBC, because the electoral management body has got a process of looking at all the stipulations, of all the qualifications, including the academic qualifications, including the integrity chapter, multi-agency working. How would we have thugs? How would we have people who are falling short of integrity chapter being cleared to run for political seats? And that is why we are having it. And I agree with what my colleagues are talking about. This is one thing that we must have so that we expedite the constitutional requirement, especially chapter 6 of the Constitution.
All right, well.
Maybe did it also come in on the issue of the Jacob Zuma case. I would want to say that I was a happy person when this happened yesterday. And I thought that it was a watershed in building jurisprudence around the constitutional order and the upholding of the rule of law. And I know that Africa is listening to what happened in South Africa. We also thank God, as Justice CBS Madan said in the Gotv case in the 1980s, that we should always be happy as Kenyans and look into the mountains and thank God that we have an independent judiciary. That this judiciary, even for those kind of trauma that is happening in Nyandarua, that the judiciary will come knocking. As of now, Rida, we have about 5 applications for contempt, which are actively in court. I don't want to talk about them. Zuma is going to jail for 15 years just because of failing. 15 months, yes, sorry. 15 months, just because of failing to appear in court.
All right.
In the case like in Nyandarua, is where a court has said, these are innocent young people, 8 of them, who are sacked by an entity not known to law. Can they be returned to the assembly and or to the payroll? They are not returned. 3 months down the line, their properties, the parents' properties are being auctioned. This is an order that has been initiated by the court that the speaker should go back to the assembly and continue doing his work. Police and the thugs are kept at the assembly, and the issues proceed as business as normal. Unfortunately, the main culprit and the main contemner is not directly involved, and therefore, at the end of the day, justice might not be done for the people of Nyandarua and for those who have been offended. But I thank God that we have an independent judiciary, and even when it looks so dark in the case like Nyandarua, that we shall see the right and the requisite sanctions shall be applied to those who think that they live above the law, although their offices are a creature of the Constitution and the statute.
Well, again,
Tomorrow is brighter. Tomorrow is brighter.
Tomorrow is brighter, as they would say. The CJ, of course, giving an affirmation again that she is determined to deal with the numerous backlog of cases that are there, that they will have to ban midnight oil and have night court sessions if need be to address the same. I know we need to get into the BBI conversation, but I'm just trying to buy time because we do not want to ponder so much on it now that it is in court. We do not go there without speaking about the exit of Sosion briefly. We had a story that, we carried here in the morning. Dan, you were not here just yet. And the new Secretary General of NAT, that is Collins Oyua, appears to be promising. Muhesh.
Yeah, he is.
He appears to be promising.
He is. By the way, Rita, by the look of the chair, of the secretary, I was having a lot of doubts that who is this now new secretary? Looks too old.
Yeah, that's true.
And also looks as if he's inability. But by the looks of the things, as he has stated here, from the meeting held between the NAT and the TSC, he looks a very good representative.
Yes.
And therefore, I would say those who elected him really had shown qualities in him. And that one I have just witnessed myself, and I put a tick.
All right.
Yes. Now, notwithstanding that, in fact, the promises that actually they could walk out with some baggage, with some goodies from the TSC and didn't bear fruits. But what I would tell the NAT is that, in fact, it's not over, and therefore, this country we shall build together with the NAT, with the TSC, and everybody else. And I am sure that, in fact, as we speak, this country is undergoing various number of problems, economic problems of its own, including our failure to attain our targets in terms of revenue correction. This is barely made by one serious effect of COVID-19. But that cannot be a permanent kind of excuse to honor the CBAs of teachers. I will tell you that if there are people who does their job well, currently I have a big question, because during our days of schooling, we were undergoing a very good route that actually we have those disciplinarians, teachers that you could never see on the street doing what we call striking. Currently, I have been shocked when I see number of teachers in the shopping centers walking around there when the students or runners are in the classroom alone. This has never happened during our tenure. And only that's my only single request I can ask teachers. No matter how difficult the country is on, never leave the service to that small learner there alone. I think they are responsible. And I believe that, in fact, since their doors are not totally closed, or their windows to their increments are not totally closed, let us keep negotiating. Let us keep dialoguing. Let us move on with whatever little will be topping up. Because finally, I'm sure this country will be in its form. And I'm sure that things will be better. As I have told my good friend panelists that actually tomorrow is brighter. Tomorrow is brighter because those difficulties he's undergoing today, it is somebody who is trying to put handles on his front. But let me tell you, the sufferers are not Kememia. The sufferers are the people of Nyandarua. So Kememians must understand that whatever block is putting in place is a block to the development of Nyandarua, and whoever is casting his final whistle or death knell is himself. Because this particular character and behavior will ruin him. And actually, the public will just respond by what we call protest in voting him out. That should be the result.
All right, Dan, I know you'd want to weigh in on matters education, crucial. And we all know, at least we've stayed for a long time without seeing the teachers going on strike. They would have expected that the CBA be reviewed at this point. But again, there's also the SRC, and we're talking of a scenario where there's a freeze across, all the civil service entities, and therefore probably wouldn't be different for the teachers. Coming in of a new face, exiting of Sosion, who held the union for the longest of time. Do you still believe that the unions have got anything that would address the issues of these teachers or any other entity that has unions?
Well, I think there is, wherever there is a new change of guard, there's always some fresh breath of air that it's pumping. I am actually and also believing that the new Secretary General would cut an edge of his unique negotiating power, try to deal with what was really affecting the union in the reigns of Wilson Sosion. But that may be. I think Wilson Sosion would be one of the Secretary Generals that was so abrasive in terms of trying to deal with matters that are affecting the union. However much people shows contempt on how he approached issues, but I think he did what he could have done. And for me, I also believe that the straw that broke the camel's back was his nominations to the National Assembly. And then that one, I think there was assumption whether he's duty bound to NATO, is duty bound to deliver, as a representative of a party. But now the incoming, Secretary General also cuts an edge. A person who is willing also to negotiate, with the Teachers Service Commission and other stakeholders that are concerned. I also like to really agree with Honorable Jimmy that one of the things that we need to give time to the new Secretary General also, because each and every leader comes with his own or her own philosophy, how he or she conducts things. And I think first of all, there was a meeting just coming days after the resignation. That shows that there is a goodwill between the teachers' service and other, not only NAT but other teachers' union representatives, to try to negotiate and try to have an amicable settlement on what was affecting the teachers. One of the things that I agree that even within the bargain, it is important for each and every stakeholder to rationalize, the bargain in terms of what is provided in the salaries, remuneration, provision, not really to go overboard. But even as there's accumulation of allowances, pending promotion of some teachers, pending hiring, and I agree that one of the important things is that the teachers' ratio to the students' ratio is really, there is a really big gap on it. And if the Teachers Service Commission and NAT could agree on how to have, higher teachers on merit, that would really bridge a gap within, the ratio of the teachers versus people, which is very important for equal delivery of free access and quality education in this country.
All right, well.
And that one will be well put. And I think the best person to deal with that is the chairperson of education in the parliament, to make sure that there is a special budget purposely to deal with that particular sector.
Maybe a reader to say something about Collins Oyu. First is to congratulate him for this position that he has taken up, representing teachers across this country. And I think, as Mheshimiwa said, is that when I saw him being ushered into office, I thought that he would disappoint teachers and the country. But after only one day, I think he has proved himself. One is that he knows he is not there to represent himself. And he is saying that what is on the table is not the aspirations of my members. And therefore, this is not something I can even delve into. So, and I also think that maybe TSC was also trying to steal a match on him. Only one day after he is in office, he has not even orientated himself. And then they are calling him very hurriedly. And I think obviously there was something that was not quite satisfactory. There was not something very wholesome that they needed to want to move forward with the agenda of the teachers. Therefore, for me is that, but we need these people to talk.
That's true.
We need NAT, KUPPET and the TSC talking, because they are very serious stakeholders in this country. They are the custodians and the trustees of our future, because they take care of our children, and therefore we encourage them to continue talking.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen, on that. We take a quick break and then we come back, ponder on the conversation of the BBI that is on still in courts up until Friday, at least from what it is that we know, unless otherwise we'll be having our team following up on the same. But again, we do not leave this set without, weighing our sentiments on the same. We are persons of interest that want to believe every other Kenyan is, because then this hugely determines the next step that we take constitutionally, especially at a time when we're looking forward to hold an election come 2022. What would be the declaration of the Court of Appeal? Certainly a question of wait and see. So we take that break and we come back with more.